Good evening. Running just a tad behind, but we'll call the Committee of the Whole meeting for June 11th to order. Please call the roll.
Alderman Strelchuk is here, but missing at the time. Alderman Talako. Alderman Meyer. Alderman Hancher.
Here.
Alderman Bach.
Here.
Alderman Parrish is Mayor Nervin.
Here. Next, we have approval of the meeting minutes from May 14th. Motion and a second. Any comments or questions? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the minutes are approved. First, we have a Southern Ozaki Fire and Emergency Medical Services update, and the chief is here to tell us how things are going.
All right. So first of all, before we begin, I thought I'd just update everyone on that, the accident, the tragedy at the dam last week. So if you're familiar with that area at all, that dam, most of the time you can just walk across the top of it. The water's only this deep. Because of the rains we've had in the last few weeks, the water was probably 3 feet above the top of the level there. There was a gentleman who was playing with his dog above the dam. He had one of those little ball retrievers, throw it out for the dog to bring it back. Somehow the dog ended up going over the dam. He went to the little lookout area, so to speak. He saw his dog. He went down below, hopped the fence, and tried to swim out to his dog. There were 2 or 3 witnesses that saw him get under, and he just never surfaced again. They called 911. Deansville police responded. They couldn't see him. We responded, got there a couple minutes after that. We used our mutual aid box alarm system and called a water rescue. If you've been around a while, it's just a predetermined response that we got. Port Washington's dive team, the Milwaukee dive team. We got ambulances and fire engines, just a lot of people. We set people up on each side of the river to see if we could see the gentleman. We put a boat in the water down below the dam, which most of the time is only knee deep. You can stand down there and fish. We went back and forth across the dam. We put a swimmer in the water for a while, but he couldn't get close enough. He's being drawn into the dam. And if we could use this, we had training last night and this morning, and I told my people, use this as an opportunity to tell your friends, your family, your kids, your grandkids, everyone you know, a dam is it's a loser, because when the water comes over the dam and you're in that, you kind of get in that boil, in that circle, it weighs, it's like grabbing on the front end of a car. It's going to take you down. You might come up, but it's going to take you down again. You just get caught in there. So we couldn't get too close. We spent that night going back and forth until it got dark, going back and forth the boat, looking for someone. We couldn't. We left someone there all night with flashlights to see if we could, find somebody. We went back the next morning at 5 a.m. We were out there with the boat and a couple divers looking downstream. We couldn't find anybody. The DNR showed up at 8 a.m. They brought their boat, and they had an underwater rover that had a camera on it and a hook, and they tried to get close to the dam, but they couldn't. That boil area, like the churn has got a lot of air in it. Propellers don't work in air, so they couldn't find them. We decided we'd just go back in the morning, the afternoon, evening, and keep looking. And Friday evening, we found them over kind of behind Fiddleheads. So our department historian tells me the last person to drown in the dam was in 1989. It was 2 people that were tubing down like the fish slide, and they got caught in the dam. And before that, about 4 or 5 years before 85, 2 people fell asleep in a canoe, and they went over the dam, and that's the year they put up the cable with the orange buoys to try to keep people from going over the dam. So that's all that's the update on that.
Thank you. Any questions? Thanks for the update. It's obviously very sad and tragic when things like that happen, but
use it as a learning opportunity for anyone you know that it's just,
Yeah.
it's,
Water is probably the most dangerous force in nature.
yes.
So it's always good to remind people. This is a really bad way to get reminded, but I agree, use it as a learning opportunity. Okay, now to the more fun stuff.
So, I just want to update you on 2023 for the Southern Ozaki Fire Department. This is our mission statement, and I'll get to how we developed this a little bit later on. But the most important thing we do is we exist to ensure the safety of the community through fire suppression, response to medical emergencies. And for some of you who've been around a while, you know we went through a whole thing with the Public Policy Forum, because it wasn't just us, but every fire department in Ozaki County was struggling to find people. But just to bring everybody up on to speed, one person, you need one person, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, that's 8,000 hours. Two people are on an ambulance, that's 17,000 hours we need to cover. If we have two ambulances, one on each side of the city, that's 35,000 hours. We still utilize our first responders. That's just another responder out in the community to get to you quicker. That's another 17,000 hours or 52,000 hours a year we try to cover. You know, we need one person to supervise them. So 61,000 hours a year is what we need to try to provide service to the community. And when the Policy Forum did their study in 2020, Mequon was only able, we had 15% of our schedule was unfilled, which is pretty good, but it's mostly because we hired the 3 full-time battalion chiefs that year. So there were only 9,000 hours that weren't covered. In the same year, Thiensville, they had 66% of their hours they were unfilled, and all they had was one full-time assistant chief to try to fill those hours. So in 2022, we merged operationally in July, and when we combined our 3 BCs, their 1 assistant chief and the 1.5 firefighters, we hired them halfway through the year. Again, we were able to cover all but 9,000 hours. But last year in 23, we only missed almost 800 hours of scheduled time. So using our battalion chiefs, our 1 captain, our 6 firefighters, we were all able to fill just about the entire schedule. And the schedule that wasn't filled was usually one of the paid-on-call members has to go to work at 7 in the morning, so he stops at 6. Or so, Lieutenant Bradley has to go to work at 4 in the morning, so there's like gaps, hour or 2 here and there, and that's where that 800 hours comes from. So currently on the left, this is our current staff, the chief, the deputy chief, 3 battalion chiefs, a captain, 6 firefighters. We have 2 vacancies from 2023. One was created by Josh Lip, the gentleman who was injured on the freeway off duty. We had to separate with him in 23, and the other person that we were going to hire in late 23 turned us down, and we did not have much more of a list to go from. So those are 2 vacancies. And in this year in 24, we're supposed to hire 2 more. So we'll be hiring 4 people throughout this year. And by the end of 2024, we'll have 16 full-time people on our department. But that's not enough. On the right side, we still need a robust paid-on-call fire department. We have 11 firefighter paramedics. Most of those are career people that work in other departments. They either live in our community or live really close and help us out by filling in on paramedic shifts. We have 34 firefighter EMTs. The majority of them live in the city. Some live close and they'll come in and work for us. 7 people are EMT onlys and 5 people who live in the community who are firefighter onlys. And that's what our current staff looks like. This is just kind of an org chart, how the fire department looks. I have a half-time assistant. We have 1 full-time captain. We have 2 paid-on-call captain and 5 paid-on-call lieutenants, and then everyone else is below them. And if we expand the chart a little more, that is the SOFD board that I report to. And the board consists of 4 voting members from Mequon and 3 voting members from Thiensville. And the administrators from each community are ex officio, so they don't vote, but they attend all the meetings and help us out greatly. And then each community has a citizen at large. Lynn Streeter, who was on our Future of the Fire Department committees on there, and Doug Chimenti is just another involved person in the village of Thiensville. So here's what we did last year. Now this is an average response time. The way most fire departments report now is you look at what you do in the 90th percentile. My statistician wasn't unable to help me on this, so we're just going to go with average response times for now. But the EMS times look really good, and it's mostly because whenever we get a call, our members get a text message on their phone. And for instance, if it says 12600 North Port Washington Road, they'll pull out of the station. They'll be halfway up the Port Washington Road because the dispatcher is still going through their EMD process, asking questions. How old is the patient? What's wrong with them? Are they having trouble breathing? So when the time comes out, shows up in there, they get there in 20 seconds. It's much longer, but it just helps with statistics. But everybody wants to know how each community is doing. So in Mequon, almost 5 minutes for an EMS call, and fire calls, 7.75. Thiensville is pretty much the same. Thiensville's response time, 4 minutes and 44 seconds. EMS call. Remember when that other slide where they couldn't cover the shifts a lot in 2021? They used to call us for help. So their response times got remarkably better because now somebody's showing up, and back then they didn't necessarily have somebody to show up. Here's the total number of calls we did in the first line in 2022, 2,900 calls with Mequon and Thiensville. We weren't combined yet, but we added them together. And those intercepts are calls that we were doing to Cedarburg to augment their paramedic program. We're actually getting paid to do those, so that's a benefit for us. We worked out a contract with Cedarburg where they pay us for oversight. It's complicated because of the DEA, and you have to have accountability for the drugs. And then every time we go up there, we get a little bit. And then in 2023, you can see we had 3,000 calls in our two communities, and we still went to Cedarburg 464 times. But that eventually will drop off because Cedarburg passed their referendum, and they'll start to hire people also. And at some point, they'll kind of just wean off of our paramedic oversight program. Number of calls by community. If you do the math on this, it turns out to be that we go to Thiensville, SOFD goes to Thiensville 12.9% of the time, or 13%. And if you remember, the formula split for the two communities was 85-15. So this is kind of right in the ballpark of where we should be. Our accomplishments in 2023 started off in March. We got the group together, and with the leadership of Lynn, we came up with our mission, vision, and values. Mission statements on our website, so is our vision. Our values are on the bottom of our emails, and also I just brought a sample of this on Friday. We have Red Shirt Fridays, and we wear our values on our backs for the fire department. This is an extra large if anybody wants it, by the way. I can get you a smaller size if you want one. That's just on Fridays. This number, $3 million, this is important. If you remember this chart on the left, we talked about this a lot last year. We had to consolidate the fleet according to the intergovernmental agreement. You can see our current fleet, 3 engines, 2 ladders, 5 ambulances, tanker trucks, a couple of staff vehicles. But the $3 million is we sold off the ladder truck, the engine, a tanker, a boat, and 2 staff vehicles. If we were still to replace that today, it's about $3 million for all that equipment. So somebody be paid for that right now, either Thiensville or Mequon. So there's a savings on our end. In November of last year, we received the Policy Forum Award for Intergovernmental Cooperation. Mayor Nurbin wrote the proposal, or the brief to the Policy Forum. I think it was edited by Van from Thiensville, and we went down to the Italian Community Center and received that award. Other things we did, we updated our fee schedule. all our members renewed their EMS licenses, which is a big deal, especially since 3/4 of the people aren't even there all the time, and it requires a lot of documentation, and it's kind of like herding cats, but we got to get all 75 people licensed. We implemented our commercial fire inspection policy. I say we delivered CPR to all city and village employees. We actually delivered CPR training to all city of Mequon and Thiensville employees who wanted it. We launched our new website. We created a better burn permit process, makes our secretary, assistant's job a little easier. We covered all but that 1% of the schedule. We managed not to be overdrawn in our checking account. There were times last year where I was living paycheck to paycheck. Because we had a slow start to our ambulance billing, because you can't, SOFD couldn't start billing until we became an entity, which was January 1 of 23, and that got pushed off, and then ambulance revenue is always kind of a drag. There's a lag when you get your account or your billings out, so it just took a while. So we managed to navigate our expenses. We tried not to spend any money on anything because our ambulance revenue was a little off, and at the end of the year, our budget, we were budgeted $3.4 million. We spent $3.1 in expenditures because our ambulance revenue was off. We had $324,000 in ARPA funding last year. That was, we got $324 in 2022, in 2022 and 2023. This was the money originally, if you remember that whole thing. We were supposed to get 750. We ended up with 648. And that ambulance billing was slow to start, and because there was a lag, some of the billing, especially Medicaid, we can never recoup that because they only go out 90 days and they cut it off. A lot of the other insurance, you can continue to bill. So it was, it took a little while. And what's next for us? As you know, it's difficult to recruit people for any kind of job, but we're paying for schooling to send people to paramedic school. So these openings that we will have a group of people to select from. This year the IGA calls for the SOFD to work out with the two communities the usage of the station and the buildings, whether it's a lease agreement or a rental or something. Recruitment and retention will always be a problem, I think. We will receive our ambulance that we ordered in July of 2022 will show up in September of 2024. We ordered another one, if you remember, back in March, and that will show up in October of 2026. It's just, I guess COVID is still a problem. We still have to talk about our fire stations and the locations with that whole space needs analysis we did. We'll do some officer development training with our people. The rescue task force training is the active shooter training that we do if something like that were to happen. And the capital equipment planning, we'll have to get a jump on too, because we have a lot of equipment coming due in like 2028, and there's a 3-year lag on getting fire equipment. So we have to kind of plan ahead for that. And here is our work plan. This year, our strategic plan, we start Monday. Doug and Lynn are coming in with some of the command staff. We're going to begin that process. We're going to hire our full-time firefighters. This wireless digital assistant is just some technology we place in a vehicle so we can stay off the radio. Justin and I will have this draft of his handbook, most likely for the next meeting in July. We want to collect some inspection data. That helps us with our ISO rating down the road. Our financial policies, as soon as you adopt yours, we'll just global search and replace and put in SOFD. We'll have policies. That IGA has to be worked out for the building usage, and we have to work on a 25 budget. And I think I did that in your 20 minutes. And I hope I didn't speak too quickly. But I have time for questions.
It was just right on pace. Any questions from anyone on the committee? Alderman Brett.
Thank you, Chief, for that presentation. You didn't touch on this in your presentation, but I know that the dispatch system has switched over for fire and police to the county
Yes.
level. How are you feeling that's going? You're sort of the customer of that system. Is it working out well for your team?
It's working out well, but from what I understand, they're still short-staffed up there. The other day with this box alarm for the water rescue, it takes time for them to receive that and then call all those communities. They do it by radio, but still takes time. And then right after that water rescue, it was dark, we were wrapping up. There was a garage fire on River Forest, and we went to a box alarm there, but they never managed to page it out just because they were so busy. There was like a fire in Belgium, the police were busy, there's something going on in Port Washington. So they still have growing pains too, and it mostly revolves around being short-staffed. But it's good.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Administrator Jones.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I would just like to take a moment and commend Chief Bialk and every member of the new Southern Ozaki Fire and EMS Department who came originally either from our department here in Mequon or from our sister department, our former sister department in Thiensville. This has been an enormous task to bring these two departments together and simultaneously to address the staffing shortages that the chief identified early in his presentation, along with building the organizational infrastructure that any institution or business or company needs to operate on a day-to-day basis. And as Chief outlined, there is still work to do. We are still building the plane as we fly it, but when it's all said and done, an enormous amount of work has been done by the men and women of the Southern Ozaki Fire and EMS Department, as well as our representatives on the board from both Mequon and Thiensville. So, as evidenced by the Policy Forum Award that we all enjoyed last year, and I think richly deserved, a big shout out goes to everyone that's been involved, either in a core fashion or peripherally, for that matter. And our goal and certainly our objective is to keep that momentum moving forward so that we can even be a better department next year and in the year beyond and in the year beyond. So thank you, Chief, for your presentation. We look forward to having you back here a year from now to talk about even more of the accomplishments that are going to be realized here in the next 12 months. Thank you.
Any last questions before we let them go? Hearing and seeing none. Good job. I'll see you at a board meeting soon. That brings us to our committee of the whole planning calendar discussion portion. The preview of coming attractions is in your packet. If there's any comments or suggestions, we can take them now, or as always, we can handle them offline. Anyone have a topic they'd want to bring up? Hearing and seeing none, we can move on to the portion where we adjourn. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The committee of the whole meeting is now concluded, and we